Hey Internet, it's RJ. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning into this show today. Now today is Sunday, so you know what that means. We're going around the net with all the news you can use in the week that was in credit and finance. So on the docket for today, we have a fully loaded agenda. We have Delta taking a look at changing their seating setup as well as hinting at a new, even higher tier version of the Delta Reserve card. We have the CFPB taking aim at Apple and other payment services. And of course, we have Capital One opening a new lounge with some interesting rules that make it a little bit different than ones we've seen in the past. So of course, if that sounds interesting to you, then go ahead, press the subscribe button, and let's get to work. Now we will lead off with the Altitude Reserve. Gone but not forgotten is the old U.S. Bank card. So over this past week, I got a note sent to me by a viewer, and we thank you for it, stating that the Altitude Reserve is still available for product change. So as you know, it's been pulled out of the U.S. Bank credit card lineup for new applicants, but it seems that you are able to product change to it. We covered U.S. Bank last week and me product changing quite easily, actually, from, the Cash Plus to the Smartly card. We've seen this before. It's the way you can get the Ritz-Carlton card with Chase still, so it wouldn't surprise me. So thank you to that person who gave it a shout out. And so if you are interested, the card is not as far out of your reach as once thought. So that aside, we get into some more travel stories, and this one is interesting. Capital One has launched a new lounge, so we'll take a look at this. These pictures are all compliments of the points guy, so I'll put them on screen for you. We can kind of click through them as we talk about it, but this is an interesting setup. So again, this is Ronald Reagan International Airport, DCA for short. Their lounge it's really split into two parts. The classic lounge that you're used to, and then they have a grab and go site on the other side. And from what I understand from TPG, like to go to the grab and go site, like you go out and around a corner and through a different door. So it's basically like two spaces. Now TPG also tells us that when you go to the lounge part, you're actually assigned to a table like you would at like an actual restaurant. It's maybe not so much like just free roam, sit wherever you want like most lounges are historically. And the interesting part here is the grab and go side is open to anyone in the airport. You don't have to have a credit card for Capital One or anything like that. Anyone can go in there, but the catch is the grab and go side is not free even for Capital One card holders. Now, aside from that, the lounge itself looks pretty similar. And that is an interesting take because in the past, we simply haven't seen that before. Similarly, Capital One also, way back when we went to Dallas Fort Worth Airport, when they first opened that airport, they did have the grab and go section as well right up front. And I thought that was a neat touch because, again, as we've stated, a lot of people are just going to the lounge because they can. Maybe they just really want to avoid paying airport prices for food, which is more than fair. But now Capital One is taken to not only separating them, but making it open to everyone, and also, even if you are an existing card member, not getting food in the grab and go for free. That's the part that gets me, honestly. I think grab and go is smart, but to help with overcrowding and stuff. But that one seemed interesting. If you have the cards, you don't get anything for free. So I think what they're trying to do is trying to deter people from doing what we always say most people do, in my opinion, which is just go to the lounge because you can, not necessarily because you need to. Sometimes you feel like you need to be getting your money worth out of the card. So I would think that's what they're trying to do with this, but I don't know why you would still have, it seems like having a grab and go section would still satisfy that requirement anyways. You wouldn't have to charge for the food. So I like where they were going at it, but if I'm a card holder, I don't care for that portion of it. Also, having assigned seats and not free roam, I think is, again, intended to help with space, right? It's easy if you've got, you go to the restaurant, the person up front seats you, they're keeping track of who's sitting where, where parts of the restaurant are getting full. So it's probably just another way to work on crowd management. So all that to say, I think it's interesting. It's also telling that they're not doing this as we know of yet at all their other lounges. So very much maybe like an experimental thing to see how it goes overall. But hey, there you go. So if the Venture X card is no longer making you feel all warm and fuzzy inside due to these changes, well, then you might feel warm and fuzzy again about the American Express Business Platinum card. At least for the time of taping, I still have one until I can wait to cancel it. But the credits, the coupons on the card are being renewed at least for a time. So a while back, we talked about the Dell, Adobe, and Indeed credits coming up for expiration. Well, they have short-term deals. So Adobe and Dell are good through June, and then Indeed has no end date listed. So to me, in my opinion, that kind of says they don't really know what they want to do. I don't know who doesn't know what they want to do. Maybe I think, it's probably more so the provider, the vendor than anything else, because that's a very short term deal just to extend it 6 months. That seems to be like what you do when you're like, we're still kind of working it out, but we don't really know for sure what we want to do. So we will go ahead and do that, extend it, and maybe in 6 months we'll have new credits over there. Who's really to say? Again, the Dell credit isn't bad. It's getting a little bit harder to use, but again, harder to use in the way we would want. Most people aren't going to be able to take advantage of Indeed, I would imagine. And Adobe is nice, but it doesn't really work on things that you'd want it to, like, Adobe Premiere, things like that. From what I've heard from folks, it doesn't work on stuff like that. Individual, like, YouTubers or website hosts, people would actually find benefit from. At least that's what I've heard. So anyhow, we have new extended credits. Now, someone who's looking for a lifeline extension, if you will, is Spirit Airlines. We've talked about Spirit Airlines for quite some time, going through a merger. I think it was trying to go with a merger with Frontier, but the merger ended up getting blocked. And so now Spirit's officially filed for bankruptcy. So we put this on screen here because the main thing you're going to want to know, it's Chapter 11, I believe, but the thing you're going to want to know is, what if I'm flying Spirit? So they sent out an open letter to tell folks, hey, you can continue to benefit from our free Spirit loyalty program, Saver Club perks, and credit card terms. That's what the company's saying. So really, overall, they didn't say much of anything except that they're still going to operate as planned. They think they'll exit this bankruptcy probably early 2025, in some case somewhere in the first quarter. Again, it is Chapter 11, so it's kind of prearranged type deal. And of course, that really means like what's going to happen going forward to them, right? They claim they needed a merger to be able to compete, and it turns out they were probably right. So apparently, you can fly Spirit. When I actually saw that California video that we did on Thursday, I actually came back on the shuttle from BTW to the parking garage with a guy who flew split ticket, and he had flown there on Spirit. He was not happy about it. It was a company thing, so shout out to him if he's watching. But he was actually talking to me about this, and he was like, I was concerned I wasn't going to be able to fly because they filed a bankruptcy, but at least his flight went fine, well enough. So I will have to see. I do think it is interesting. And on one hand, you got a company trying to do a merger to avoid this, and then they step in, the FTC says no, and then this happens. So I don't. It'll probably all be fine. Sometimes you just go through Chapter 11, come back, reorganize, and everything is fine. So we'll keep an eye on it. Spirit, we keep making fun of them, but somehow they keep hanging around. Now, an airline who is more than hanging around, but outright dominating and looking to dominate even further is Delta, my airline of choice. Well, they recently came out and said they were looking at playing around with, I'm going to call it the fare or ticketing system. And you could think about it like, if you divide the plane up into quarters, basically, you have like your first class, then you have Comfort Plus, which is kind of like business class. Then you have economy, but like economy, you have like economy where like you still pay a little bit of money and you can like pick your seats. And then you have like the basic of basic economy, which is like you'll get a chair, but it's just like whatever's left, right? And there's different perks, if you'll call them, throughout that. Well, what it sounds like they're trying to do is find a way to subdivide the economy section even further. So specifically here, we've got some quotes, and we love quotes, right? Basic economy and standard economy, I guess that's what it's called, right? So they're planning to introduce a new third tier to its coach product in the coming months. That's from the executive. It's part of a larger unbundling plan the carrier has, which could eventually see Delta offer customers a wider swath of fare options, good, better, best, as they're calling it, through each section. That's from TPG. So the quote here is that we've got all these different cabins on the plane, but we really think there's another way to segment them. This is from the Delta president. So really I don't know. I mean, like, what else can you do? The problem with this story, I think, is if you think about the benefits, you have to take away something from someone because there's really only so much you can do, right? So if you think about it, first class, like boarding goes, if you need more time or you're, military, and then it goes like first class, right? The benefit of first class is you get on the plane first, which I've honestly never really understood. It seems like since they have reserved baggage space and everything, you would want to get on the plane last, but whatever. They get on first. As soon as they get on, people start taking their drink orders, which again, I guess is a perk. I don't drink, so fine, whatever. I mean, you could get juice or something, but still. Those are the perks. First on, first off, always baggage space, drink service, food service, that whole thing. That makes sense. Comfort Plus, you're usually on after them, and they give you you can still get a ton of snacks, and you can get alcohol, no food, but you can get stuff like that. More leg room off in a reasonable amount of time. Then, of course, you can pick your seat. Then you go to the back a little bit farther. It's you're on last, so baggage room is going to be a little bit tougher, but again, everyone in first and comfort has their own section, so not a problem. No alcohol, you do get snacks and water and coffee and stuff. And then, so you see my point as we go through it, what are you going to pull? The things that come to mind is if you wanted to make a more budget section, are you taking away people's snacks and those little Biscoff cookies? Are you taking away the terrible internet that you give everyone already? I don't know. I just feel like you're going to take away something, and how much stuff can you actually possibly take away to make it that much more affordable? It already costs $50 or something to pick your seat. They've pulled Sky Club access if you're doing basic economy. I think they probably will pull earning Sky Miles even if you're on the base. So there's some stuff they can mess around with. I just don't know. It's probably more so aimed at saving them money than actually going to be a benefit. But if it does make it maybe $100 cheaper a ticket, I do think that's enough to interest some people. That's probably enough savings. But it's already kind of dynamic pricing anyways. So I've gone through this a lot as a Delta flyer. I don't see how this comes out to be a benefit for anyone else. It just seems like one group may be losing perks that you would think would just be a part of it by now. But we have people who fly much more than me, so let me know down below. Would you be interested in an even cheaper tier? Of course, they're going to use the word economy. We're talking about bare bones, cheaper tier, Spirit in the back, I guess. Is what we could call it. So with that, one other quote came to mind, came up, which is really much ado about nothing, but it's got Delta and Amex in the name, so let's overreact to it, shall we? In that same interview or something, or whatever it was, they asked, hey, do you have any plans for lacing another credit card? Is there a new or better card? And the guy said, the president, same guy, is there a new or better card out there? We'll put our thinking caps on, never stay satisfied. And that's not enough to write a whole article about, a whole video about, but some will try. So we know nothing. He just basically said, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, I think absolutely they could do another tier up of the Delta Reserve, 100%, because that's what, $550? We've seen the Marriott Brilliant go to $650, the Platinum's at $700. So there's room for it, and especially on the business card side, which Delta has shown their hand that they really want the business travel. Obviously the corporate accounts, but the business traveler who are hey, we're just expensing this stuff, so we don't care. We bill it to a client. So it absolutely makes more sense to make a $750 card, maybe $700 card. Now, the problem you get into is the same as the last part, is what can you bundle in with it? Do you start to add in the Delta One Lounge, but then do you start going too far like you did with Sky Clubs? Do you, at that point, you definitely remove the cap for Sky Clubs? I've often argued, and some people, many disagree with me, that main boarding perk on all the cards isn't good enough at the top end because everyone has main boarding, so it doesn't mean anything, or everyone just bum rushes the line, which again, we had that United story a while back where at least they were trying to crack down on it. So I think you'd have to do some kind of early legitimate, you get Sky priority boarding, you get Delta One access. Maybe what would be really cool is if you've got connectings, you get 1 or 2 times a year where they'll drive you get the call, the Porsche, and they'll come take you to your connecting, something like that. But then at that point, I think you're in probably close to $1,000 tier for the card, which I still think people would pay for. The card's already fast track you to medallion. I don't think you really want to give out medallion status on the card. I think airlines just don't do that. They want more spend. So you could increase the spend multipliers to get to medallion, but I think you're looking at stuff like that. So I think they definitely could make a higher end card. So let me know what you think. What would you want? Or just yell at me for trying to get people on the plane faster, because I know last time I said that it was not a popular opinion, but I think that's what it is. So anyhow, on to enough travel. If you'll indulge me, can I talk about Apple now, please? Jeez, it's my show. We talk way too much about travel this episode. But it's not a good story. Maybe it depends on how you feel about regulation. So the CFPB has come out and said they're going to start looking at folks like Apple and other payment services like financial institutions. Now, Apple is being the biggest one, so it gets a headline, but you're probably talking about, your Venmos, your Cash Apps, Zelle, which even though Zelle was invented by the banks, just for example's sake, I'm throwing them in there. So this is specifically, I believe, Apple Pay. This is from one of my favorite sites, Mac Rumors. So CFPB has finalized a new rule that will bring Apple Pay and other major digital wallet services under the same oversight as banks. So they announced that effective 30 days after its publication in the Federal Register, digital payment platforms processing over 50 million annual transactions in US dollars will be subject to federal supervision. Apple Pay is one of the most widely used digital wallets, as you would imagine. So the new rule will grant the CFPB powers to proactively examine Apple Pay's compliance with federal consumer financial laws, including privacy protection, fraud prevention, and account stability. CFPB has highlighted privacy concerns, fraud risk, disruption caused by account closures, and consumer protection as key areas of focus in this. So it goes on to say a few more things, but I think this is probably a good thing. I mean, considering how much money is being moved from there, how much people rely on that and use these services every single day. And a lot of these guys, Apple in particular, as much as I love them, they do hide behind privacy. They continue to say, no, don't trust anyone else. We have your best interest in mind with privacy. And, that's sure, maybe. I don't think they're malicious in anywhere, but you can't hide behind privacy for every single issue that comes up. So given that, they're moving so much money, I think that's fair. I would also tend to believe that this is something that were probably lobbied. I know we've had a story where this was lobbied by other banks, where other banks were, hey, look, if you were going to be on our case, you got to go be on their case because it's basically the same thing. And they've become pseudo banks, if you will, masquerading around as technology companies and pushing some of the other stuff off onto real banks to manage. So I don't really believe you'll see any real change from a consumer point of view. It's just more so one more avenue. And again, as working on both sides of it, as a person at a bank, when the government rolls through, it's annoying, right? Where they definitely, when your job is to find something, you're gonna find something. But on the other side, I filed many of CFPB complaint, and so if you have an issue now or something, I would imagine this now brings that into the purview of the CFPB, which means you could file a complaint. So it is an added level of protection for the consumer, and I don't think I can't foresee them doing anything negatively with the companies to it. It's just going to have to something they deal with, I would imagine. Of course, we'd keep our eye out if they could have some fee changes or something, but I really don't foresee that because right now these services are mostly free unless you do instant transfers or something like that. So, I'm not really a fan of regulation, but I mean, there's reasonable regulations right now. This at least seems reasonable. So we'll have to keep our eye on that, but overall, more protections for us as it would seem right now. So anyhow, there is the news, and that Apple story wasn't even that long. See? There you go. Team travel for the day. But if you liked it, go ahead, drop me a thumbs up down below. If you found it particularly interesting, consider subscribing to the channel. So we're talking about content just like this every single week. And of course, right back here every Sunday with all the news you can use in the week that was in credit and finance, as well as every single day over on profitablecontent.com, which is the channel's blog, always linked down below for you, and on the channel homepage. We not only have the latest news stories just like this, we have plenty of bank promotions, and we have credit card offers, hence the name Profitable Content. Well, as always, guys, that'll do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you very soon this week.